Hello everybody, welcome to today's video on the channel, and in today's video I want to talk about the news in the community, and that is going to be the Arc 2 Spellements. Now in case you're sleeping under a rock, you're probably like, Liam, what the hell are you talking about? Okay guys, Arc 2 Spellements are coming in spring, and the test realm is probably going to be next week. They said on KI Live, which is where I'm getting all this information from, that it's going to be, I quote, very soon. There's going to be a lot of changes with this update. I would honestly say in terms of quality and content, this update's going to be up there with Wallaroo in terms of like, you know, size and content and just the game, so I think that's going to be great. This is also going to be the first time in roughly about approaching a year that the PvP meta is actually probably going to get shook up. And for the PvE players who are watching this video, don't worry, your spells are basically going to stay the same. In general, for, you know, PvE, your top path stuff will pretty much just be getting buffed and getting better. You know, like Frost Giant, for example, has a top path, just a little bit more damage. Alright, so the first thing I want to talk about is something the community's been asking for ever since Rochambeau launched a couple of years ago, and that's essentially just, you know, having the card text provide a lot more transparency and stuff like that. If you guys look at a spell like Evil Snowman, it's not too complex, but it's complex enough to be a bit confusing to the player. Basically, KI has implemented a solution where you can right click on the spell and this is what you're going to see. It basically tells you the exact same thing, however it puts it into like sentences and words and explains what it's actually doing in depth, which I think is really good. So I think that's a really good positive change, and there's going to be a card in the video today where even me, who, you know, a guy who can literally name every card and knows what every card does just in my mind, there's a card in this video today, guys, where I shit you not, on stream, I was like, dude, what am I looking at? I genuinely cannot figure it out. So it gets pretty complex. Even if you're a top 1% player, it gets very complex and confusing. So I think this update in terms of spell context could not have come at a better time. Okay, so let's look at the first card, and that's going to be Storm Owl. This is the one that most players are excited for. The developers were hyping this up for quite some time now. I think this card actually is pretty good. I know a lot of people have been, you know, wanting to know my opinion on this card, so I guess here it is. I think this card is pretty good, and when you actually compare it to something like Avenging Fossil, which you'll see a little bit later on in the video, this card just really shows how powerful Storm should be, and I think that's a great thing that KI's captured that here. However, I do want to remind you guys of the time where KI basically baited us. They basically buffed Rusalka to like the best it's ever been in test realm, and then they rolled out with the current live realm Rusalka, which the player base has made very clear they do not like, and it's just absolutely disgusting and makes me want to vomit. So yes, this new owl looks really good. Can't really trust KI to just roll it out because this does seem to look like a good Storm card. My only issue with this card is the fact of the matter that, again, I've said this for a year now, HOTS are an underdeveloped. Yes, when you think of the max value on this card, if you get the conditional, yes, it's absolutely insane and broken. However, we have awful cards to acquire HOTS like Oni's Forge and Leprechaun in the game right now that simply just aren't going to keep up. So if KI can find a way to develop the library a bit more, kind of like they did with the .1 in this update, which again, you'll see later on in this video, I think this spell could be an absolute demon and definitely meta. But if KI does not develop the hot library and leaves bad cards in, like I said, Leprechaun and Oni's Forge, etc., I think this is just going to be a spell that players are going to use the top path instead of the bottom path, because the bottom path just isn't realistic, unfortunately. But in general, really cool spell, and it is the best 10 pip that we know of so far. Next up, I want to talk about the two spells that I haven't seen anybody talk about, because actually you could only see these spells for about half a second throughout the hour or two the live stream was on, and I think a lot of people actually missed it, and that's going to be Life and Storm King Artorias. These actually were not intended to be teased Now, I'm going to put the storm one up on screen right now. It's basically hitting and clearing 3 heal overtimes on the opponent for a heal overtime on you. And the life one we have, it basically hits and clears up to 3 damage overtimes on yourself for, again, heal overtime on you. Those are the 2 cards that nobody has really talked about because, again, it was up on screen for like half a second in like the whole 2-hour VOD. So you're welcome for that. Let's get on to the next one. So the next one I want to talk about is Rebirth. Now, this one actually, I've heard a lot of things. It's really OP, it's really bad, it's going to bring back jading and stuff like that. And, you know, we'll have to see what happens, of course, guys. But I think as a spell and a concept, this card is absolutely nuts and off the charts in terms of value, okay? So I'm going to basically just read it to you guys in case you're kind of confused by the text, right? So you're going to click the Rebirth card, okay? You're going to get 2,200 healing before accounting for a sanctuary, any buffs, or your outgoing, and get 3 separate heals on yourself to gambit with that last 5 rounds. And you can clear up to 5 traps on yourself and get 20 blades back, again, assuming this is going to be 5 20 blades. Kind of like how Centaur works, right? You remove 4 traps, you get 4 blades, right? Same kind of concept. So in theory, right, you could Rebirth and then set up a Storm Scion and a Thundering Djinn at the same time, and both of them are buffed, which is like insane while you're healing as well. I think this is the first time we're seeing a spell actually set up 2 gambits at once, which I think again is very, very interesting. Next up, I want to talk about Thieving Dragon. Now, I know ice mains have been suffering for quite some time now, just like storm mains, and Thieving Dragon got quite a substantial buff on its path B. Now, this card is going to be a bit different and confusing. It's basically doing a bit more damage as it did before. It's going to hit, actually clear an aura on the opponent, and then you get a 70 set shield to yourself. Now, that looks like a 70 tower shield and not a chromatic shield. Still really powerful card, and this is another layer to the game that KI is adding. Next up, we have the Myth King Artorias, which is one of my favorite cards in the game. This is a absolutely demonic weakness counter. This is like chromatic betrayal types broken, but this spell is an actual like 8 pip myth card, which means you need like 8 myth pips of Arch Mastery and the accuracy on it to cast as well. So this card is essentially going to clear up to 5 weaknesses on yourself. So think of like threefold spam and vampire on yourself, and then put up to 5 50% chromatic traps on the opponent, and then do 760 damage between 2 deferred overtimes over 5 turns. So I think you maybe might see Storms run this to try and deal with threefold spam, and you know, you could honestly maybe strike now and not have to worry about vampire if you use this card. Or like if you get spirit diffused or something like that in strike on a storm, you can just do this and then, you know, probably get a pierce blade back. Yeah, you would because you're hitting. And then have a 50% buff that you can combo with. It's just gonna be insane. Next up, we have Rain of Fire. Now, this is a very interesting one, and this is the card that actually got me extremely confused. Okay, so Rain of Fire, 1350 damage. If you just click the card, you get 3 overtimes that last 6 rounds. And then if you have 3 heal overtimes on yourself, you'll actually get 6 damage overtimes to meet the max conditional. Something the community is a bit concerned about is the animation time for something like a raid, whereas PvP in general. You know, could dots and hots be sped up? And I think the devs did say they are working on that right now. Next up, I want to talk about the Power Nova. This is a new shield counter, which again, I think is only going to be good on a balance. So basically, if your opponent has 6 shields, you get a pip back per shield. I'm excited to see how PvP is going to be with that in the game. I hope that Hydra can get nerfed so we don't have to Ellie shield and try shield, because if Hydra stays OP the way it is, you have to Ellie Shield, but then if you Ellie Shield to counter Hydra, this spell is just gonna nuke you because it's literally like 0 pips for 600 damage, which is insane. Next up, we have Avenging Fossil, which again, if we compare this to Storm Owl, it's actually a really, really bad card. The damage is way lower. The conditional is basically the same as Death Scion, and you get 3 pips back per. So you can get up to 12 pips, like just like Storm Owl, essentially, but you're doing like way less damage with the Fossil. This is probably the worst spell out of everything we've seen so far, and you know, it's kind of nice that Death finally got a bad spell because it's had the most broken spells for like a year now, so good on KI for that. Alright, last and certainly least, I think, Frost Giant. Now, Frost Giant, like I said at the start of the video, top path is fine. Top path is fine, don't worry guys. Bottom path, right here, is essentially going to clear a lot of blades or a lot of chromatic traps, that looks like, or universal traps. I think that's actually universal traps, that icon. So, basically, 7 pip card that's going to remove a crap ton of blades and put on a lot of traps on the opponent. And this still can be an AoE and used in advanced content. So in theory, you could remove up to 20 blades on all 4 players if all 4 players or enemies have, you know, 5 blades on. I guess there's one more thing I could talk about is how you're going to get the Spellements. Essentially, they're making a freaking level 50 elixir or whatever that's free, that you can, you know, just activate and go down and farm your Spellements as a max level character. So technically, it is better than what it was before with the Arc 1 Spellements, where you had to have, you know, a whole retriever pet or delete a max character like I did to actually obtain the Spellements. But now you can just, you know, equip a free elixir and get the farming on a max level character. So I think that's pretty cool. That's everything I want to say for the video, guys. I hope you enjoyed. Leave a like and a sub if you made it this far, and I will see you guys on the next one. Thank you for watching, and take care.